Math 6. Here we go. We are on to Unit 2, my website here. Arithmetic with rational numbers. Write that down, rational numbers. What does that mean? Do you know what that means? Rational numbers, you can think of it as fractions. Okay? In general, a rational number is a fraction. But we can express fractions in different ways. For example, examples of fractions. Let me give you some examples of fractions. And I know you think my first example is going to be 1/2, don't you? Here's my first example of a fraction, 7. Why is 7 a fraction? I mean, actually, it's not a fraction at the moment here, but I could write it as a fraction, 7/1, see? And so that's a fraction. Also, 0.25, that is not a fraction. That is a decimal. But can we write it as a fraction? Yes, we can. And so what is that fraction? Well, 0.25 is actually the proper way to say it is 25 hundredths, right? Did you know that? So that's because we can write it as 25/100. And so we can think that all rational numbers are fractions because even though they include things that are written in different ways, ultimately those things can be traced back to a specific fraction that they represent. All right, whether it's a decimal, a whole number, or whatever, percent even. It's all rational numbers. There's a fraction that can be represented. So we need to do some arithmetic. We need to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. That's arithmetic. Those are operations, add, subtract, multiply, divide. So we're going to do a little bit of that with decimals, and then we're going to talk about division of fractions. All right, word problems. Orla and so you're going to have to write this down here. Orla and Eduardo each looked at a strand of their hair under a microscope and measured the diameter. Orla's strand was 0.005 centimeters in diameter, and Eduardo's strand was 0.012 centimeters in diameter. How much greater was the diameter of Eduardo's hair? So if it had said how many times greater, then I would be dividing. But it says how much greater, so the quantity. So I'm going to be what? I'm going to be subtracting. If someone has $8 and another person has $5, how much greater? It's $3 greater. You get that by subtracting. All right, so let's subtract 0.012, 0.005. This one's pretty easy because the decimals line up. But when we're adding and subtracting, make sure that you line up decimals. So they should be right on top of each other before you do your math. Okay, so we're going to need to borrow here. So 12 minus 5 is 7. And I had to borrow from the next place value. So that's 0 and 0 and then 0. So it's 0.007 centimeters greater. All right. You have to do another one, or is that good? How far is the third fret from the first? So we're subtracting there. The decimals line up again, so I'm not going to do that one for you. Let's see it. And the decimals line up. You got this one. You got it. Maybe quiz 1. Are we doing quiz 1? Yeah. All right. So I really want to encourage you to do these quizzes, even if they're not assigned, because they mix all the problems up together and it makes your brain work harder. And although you may not like it at the time, it's good for you. Okay, how many kilometers in total? So I should have read it all, but what I wanted to do was kind of guess at the operation, and I think I know it. Do you know what the operation is? What are the key words here? What is the key word here? Hopefully you're saying total, and what does that mean? That means add. Okay, so we want to add the kilometers. So you see the minutes, that is not needed. We have kilometers by horse and kilometers by trains versus journeying far on a horse and a train to school. And we know we want the total journey. So here's where I had to be careful to line up the decimal points. Okay, so we're going to add those together. And we get 2160. 2160. All right. So that was good. All right, so give that assignment a try. Come with any of your questions. It'll be no problem. Remember, this video is not to make you an expert, it's to get you started, you know, as opposed to just try the assignments without watching the video. All right, divide fractions by whole numbers. So when we divide fractions, you can write that divide fractions means take reciprocal, we can say dividing fractions. What we actually do is we multiply by reciprocal of second number, you know? So in this case, the second number is 3. And so I'm going to do 8/5. I'm going to change division to multiplication, and 3 is really 3/1. So I'm going to flip that, make it the reciprocal, which would be 1/3. And then multiplying fractions, easiest thing there is, we just multiply across. 8 times 1, 5 times 3. And I'm done. Of course, we can reduce if reducing is possible, but reducing is not possible in that case. Okay, so you can do that. Just put it over 1, reciprocate it, and boom. And then this one right here, you don't even need to put it over 1. It's already a fraction. So 3/2 divided by 8/3 is 3/2 times 3/8. Should be 9/16. Now just multiplying across. 9/16. Let me hear it. Let's hear it. All right. So not too bad. Make sure you don't use a calculator. If you have a calculator, if you've used it this year, stop, because Math 6 is not about learning how to use a calculator. It's about learning how to do the math in your head. Okay, trust me. And so I hope that was helpful. Complete it on your own now, and then come to class with your questions. Bye.